start the show. All right.
Hey, Jeeples. Welcome to On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, the guy that tends to read the instructions, follow them, and uses the right tools. And Scott is winding up for something, but I'll let him introduce himself.
And I am Scott. I am the slapstick parts guy on a continual mission over these past 3 years and over 89 episodes to derail this man's poor train of thought. And with that, I will say thank you very much from the WranglerFix.com studios, kind of a makeshift name at the moment. Welcome to show 89.
I wish you'd tell me you do these things.
It's more fun. You get the genuine human reaction.
Yeah, right. So, anywho, now with Jeepin' with Judd safely over for 2020, and you have now recovered from our trail rides and the pounding.
Oh boy! Let me break out my notes here. I got tons of them.
Art thou ready to discuss the big change in your Jeep life?
Yes, I am. They're going to do this.
He's getting all emotional. Can you hear it in the voice?
You know what? All joking aside,
it's not yours anyway. But yeah.
All joking aside, yes, you are correct. And to those who haven't followed us on Instagram, back on January 31st, Dory and I not really faced with a.
And by the way, that date it has some significance, but we'll get back to that.
It will. We've been thinking about some things, and her Jeep, Nightcrawler, Night Crawl Up, Beastie, whatever name it went by at the time. We were faced with some tough decisions. I bought the banana hammock for a while for a daily driver, and it started to show its age a little bit. And we really started thinking about some things.
It was old when you bought it.
It was old when I bought it. And we started facing some tough decisions, and a lot of other decisions are leading to other decisions as this goes on. So basically, we decided that we would. I don't even know how to say this now.
Well, after Jasper, Dory came home with a big I wanna, a really, really big. Four-wheel drive, I want to. Hint, nudge.
It even goes back further than that.
I realize that.
Yeah, and basically, Dory is an 8-year and done kind of person. She wants, or 4-year and done, she wants a new vehicle. Leasing doesn't do anything for us, so we, I know everyone's going, get on with it, but I kind of tease. It's how you build up anticipation.
You know what it's coming to, don't
exactly.
you? Exactly.
So she's been working really hard. She got her BSN. She loved the Jeep. That black JK was a lot of memories, and its build date was very close to our anniversary. So it had tons of sentimental value to both of us, but it needed a lot of work.
Yeah. I was going to say, let's see, we were talking about front ball joints,
front and rebuild.
Second time, bearings, bushings.
Yeah.
The lift kit that was cobbled together needed to be replaced. So you wanted a correct lift kit. Oh, there was just a small list of enhancements.
Yeah, there's a lot of I want us. So as we were deciding and looking at things, when the new JL came out, we're like, oh, this is kind of nice, but there's some grumblings of when the Jeep truck was going to come out with. And we've all seen the Gladiator. Matter of fact, you've heard our joke when we went to the SEMA Gladiator Super Show. It really piqued our interest. But at the time, August, they were selling those things above MSRP. And I'm like, nah, let's wait.
Yeah.
Let's see if we try and find one used. And we tried. And so one thing led to another. I walked into a dealership.
On the last day of the month.
On the last day of the month.
In the last hour of the day.
At the last 3 hours of the day.
Yeah.
And I walked in with the title to the yellow truck. And they cleaned out JK.
Yeah, and it was over 300 pounds lighter after having all the dog hair out.
Now we left some of that in there. Carry over to the new owner. And matter of fact, I even brought the yellow truck with the fuel light on, and the JK had the fuel light on too. I'm not giving them an extra gallon of gas. Come on, I know I work there. So basically, we went and we looked at some the JT trucks, and everyone says no, don't buy the first year, blah blah blah. Guys, from the rear doors forward, it is a JL.
Yep,
it carries the same platform for the most part.
Frame's a little different, but that's about it.
Yeah,
might be a good thing.
Exactly. That's the first thing I checked. That was on my list. Front track bar welds. And we looked at an Overland, because we needed something that could tow. But again, before the deluge, it was not a real truck. Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. Okay, we're going to stop and we're going to pause on 3 occasions. Number 1, buying a new vehicle. Do your research.
Yep.
You go on the internet, they're going to talk about holdback pricing, invoice pricing, MSRP pricing, what your vehicle's really worth, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. Here's the deal. The people you buy your vehicle from, they already know you're there to look at that vehicle. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like we had a Honda Civic R or SR at my shop, and the salesman was telling to the young kid with a backwards hat, well, this thing's turbocharged and has a compact disc. Like, guy, he doesn't care about that. He just wants to the best price because he's here to look at that car.
Yep.
You're not going to sell him that car. He's already here to buy that car. Mm-hmm. What's the best price?
Yep.
So the old trick of, well, tell me why I need to buy this and not a Tacoma. They already know that you're there to buy that truck. That doesn't work. I'm sorry, but it's not the 1990s anymore. So moving on from that subject, mm-hmm. They already know that you're there to look at the vehicle. Mm-hmm. So what can you do to better arm yourself to make a wise decision, to get the best price possible? Well, the internet has definitely leveled the playing field a lot more than people think.
It can if you use it.
Yes. Now, the pre-internet, you know, absolutely, it was the golden era of car dealerships. They would make money on selling the car and make even more money in the service department. Mm-hmm. Not anymore. They don't make money like you think they do up front selling the car. Now, what I mean by that is they have what's called holdback pricing. Now, I can already hear my inbox going, idiots, shut up. Here's the deal. The dealership, when they offer you invoice pricing, it sounds like a great deal. I'm getting what the dealership paid for it. And in a sense, you are.
You are.
So if they're offering you $2,000 below invoice pricing, well, how can they do that? Well, simple, holdback pricing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to move a certain amount of units a month. And at the end of the year, they get that money back between 30 and 50% of the MSRP value or invoice of that vehicle back in rebates from the manufacturer.
And that's to the dealer, not to you.
That's to the dealer. Now, that's where they make their money. Mm-hmm. So are they selling the vehicle below cost? Yes. But they're getting that money at the end of the year.
Now, there is risk to the dealer, in all fairness to them, because if they do not make the conditions of the holdback, okay, they don't move as many vehicles as specified, they may not get anything back. Yeah. Okay, they could actually take a loss. So, you know, this is some of the economics. But Scott, you jumped way ahead. You still haven't told people what you've done.
So I did. We went to go look at a Gladiator.
Yeah. Okay. You figure it out. I was trying to lead him to that because he got so excited about telling you about how he strong-armed the dealership by coming in on the last day of the month, the last 3 hours of the day.
And those are some tricks that work. And I know it sounds, especially if you have someone telling you, hey, they're trying to move 400 units this month. You need to get there now. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know.
So we went there looking at an Overland.
Yeah.
Okay. The Foo Pinky Out Sahara Jeep truck. And of course, they're like, you know, well, I'm calling it what it is.
I'm just laughing. Go ahead.
Dory wanted a Platinum F-150 or a Platinum F-250.
Yeah.
Now, everyone that says, you know, well, it's not a real truck. You can buy a truck for half price. Well, yeah, you could. A base model vinyl floor XLT for the same price. Mm-hmm. And that's not four-wheel drive, but you're not getting apples for apples.
No, you're not.
So, anywho, I'm moving 1,000 miles an hour, and I do apologize.
Can you sense the excitement here, folks?
And it is very exciting because the whole what went down and how things go to me is fascinating. It's like engineering to you. Mm-hmm. And again, so back to the story. They said, oh yeah, this truck will tow 6,000 pounds. At least that's what the internet tells me. Mm-hmm. All right, so we sitting there, we're like, okay, let's look around. They actually have it now in the Jeeps, a towing guide. You click on the button, 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, you'll pull up the VIN number. It'll actually give you by the vehicle if there's things. So,
and we're like, that won't work because the LJ weighs 4,000 pounds.
Yeah,
you know, I want to get a trailer and the LJ in tow. Well, the wife wanted the radar cruise control. She wanted the blind spot detection. She wanted the cross traffic alert. She wanted the premium audio. She wanted leather seats. You see how the option boxes are being ticked.
Bong, bong, bong.
Yeah, an Overland, that price is $47,000. You go to a Rubicon, next thing you know, it's 3 kidneys, 2 lungs, and a heart.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, okay, and especially with MSRP pricing.
Yeah.
But here's another holdback, or not holdback, but another interesting thing. It's not August anymore. They're not new. And they did not fly off the shelf like they thought they would. They priced themselves out of the market. And so now they start offering rebates. Mm-hmm. Rebates to dealers, rebates to incentives for you to buy this shiny new truck. So looking at that, we got that Overland down to $43,000.
Wow.
Now that's reasonable, especially when you only owe a certain amount of money, and if you get $18,000 for a JK, you have already paid for a chunk of that vehicle.
Right.
So that was a really feasible idea, but it wasn't tow. So, of course, what do you guys need? Well, we need a minimum of the max tow package or a Rubicon. We would prefer a Rubicon, but a fully loaded Rubicon, out of the question.
Yeah.
Well, we can do. I said, you know what? Look, I don't want to force this. I'm going to go across the street to the wing house, have dinner. Call me if you find something. And we walked away. And the sales manager didn't like that.
So they never like you to actually leave the premises.
No,
because the probabilities of you purchasing once you've left drops to fractions. You know?
And true to form, they called me as I had hot sauce all over my hands and face as I'm elbow deep into my chicken sandwich. So I go back over there, and they found a Rubicon. And I'm like, okay, so there's the other half of how dealership pricing works. All right, what's the best price you can do? Well, they offered me $2,000 under invoicing. I'm like, okay. And I looked them right in the eyes and said, invoice pricing to you is MSR to me. It don't mean jack.
Yep.
I said, I know you're going to get holdback pricing. And as I'm explaining this, I'm doing it in a polite, professional manner because everyone else there knew who I was. Mm-hmm. When I say knew who I was, I'm talking 27 years in the car dealership business, not because of the podcast. I don't want to be ever labeled a guy throwing weight around like that. Mm-mm. That will not happen from Kevin and I. So if you ever hear a story of that,
it ain't true.
It ain't true because me and Kevin, if anything, we are the exact polar opposites due to previous experiences. Mm-hmm. But moving on from that subject. So as the situation presented itself, he didn't like that. He's like, this is the best I can do. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Okay. Obviously, $2,000 under invoice was what he could do. Now, the one we had, they found for me in Fort Myers, and it was fully loaded, had the soft top, which is what we wanted, mm-hmm. and not painted fenders and no front trail cam. But every other option was ticked. Mm-hmm. Okay. So obviously, the price he set before me was what I got. All right. What can you do for trade-in? Wasn't even close to what I wanted. I said, okay, well, thank you for your time. And I went to walk away again. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because money isn't trade-ins.
Yeah. See, I can't. I just, more power to you if you can put up with that kind of BS. I have walked out of dealerships more times than not. And even though they run after me and spouting numbers, I'm like, look, you blew it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't deal in that kind of gamesmanship. But, you know, if you can put up with it for your benefit, more power to you. I just say that.
And that's where I knew I had them by the, and I hate saying this term because I'm in the deal. I had them by the short hair because I knew I was unit number 400. Mm-hmm. And I knew they needed to make that number. I was in their dealership.
They were going to make more than the entire cost of that truck if they moved 400th unit by the close of business.
Exactly. So I literally said, and again, going on the last day of the month, the last few hours is a very powerful tool. Mm-hmm. I've done that when I even bought the JK, I did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, thank you for your time. And they, oh, no, we'll do this. And so finally I got to where I got what I wanted for the JK.
Okay.
And I'm like, I still don't know. And again, you're playing games, but I'm the one saddled with the payment for the rest of the next of my life.
Yeah, the next 6 or 7 years.
And they, well, what can we do to get you in this car today? All right. So I pulled the title out of the yellow truck out of my pocket. At this point, the sales manager knew that I was serious and that I was playing games. Mm-hmm. In other words, like I was playing his game against them. Mm-hmm. The story is true. If you make a friend, you pay too much. If they can't wait to get you out of that you-know-what office, you got a good deal. Well, he actually gave me what I paid for the yellow truck.
Good.
So at that point, I'm like, you know what? This is a fair deal. I'll sign papers. So we now own a 2020 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon with just about every option ticked. Mm-hmm. And the wife loves it. And it also gives us a chance now that I don't have to rebuild front ends and everything else. I can now show the LJ some much needed love.
Which I do want to segue real quick from the last show. We got a comment or two going, well, why didn't Scott take his Jeep? Well, there's your answer. The LJ is his purple rainbow unicorn, what is it? LJ 6-speed.
It's a Rubicon LJ with a 6-speed transmission. Right. Only a little north of 7,000 were made.
And but it has seen a long life already. Shall we just put it that way?
There's 140 clock, and the only thing not worn on it right now is the passenger seat.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that has cigarette burn holes from the previous owner.
But he's in desperate need of suspension components, brake components.
The tires are 2011.
Yeah,
9-year-old tires.
9-year-old tires. So this is the reason he decided to ride in slightly altered rather than follow along in his, because he was afraid he would be one of those that we would be towing off the course.
Yeah. With a slipping clutch. No, I don't need to go there right now. And people go,
And open diffs.
Well, why didn't you take the Gladiator?
Well, no, they're not. That's right. Yours is Ruby. So.
Yeah. And the reason why we didn't take the Gladiator is because the wife worked. She was on call.
She was on call. She'd actually, let's see, I think you said 2 times before that either the preceding afternoon or that night she got called in.
Yeah. She didn't get home till 3 a.m. that morning.
So, no, I'm kind of glad she stayed home and slept.
She was rightfully so a bit grouchy. So what I'm boiling down to is that to the naysayers that sit there and say it's not a real truck, it's not.
It's a Gladiator.
It's a Gladiator.
It's its own class.
It's meant to take on the Tacoma. It's meant to take on the Ranger and the Colorado and the Canyon and the Nissan Frontier and the Honda Ridgeline. And I actually said that with a straight face. For those of you that own a Ridgeline, I apologize. Cute truck, but it's not a truck.
Well, so, a lot of those are unibody construction. Yes. So if you just stick to frame-on vehicles, it's in that compact truck arena.
Yeah, and
that's okay.
And one of the things I did is I went on the Gladiator forums, the owners group, and I said, "Hey, look." And I have had when I did the post on social media that what we got, everyone's like, "Well, why did you do that? Well, that's not a real truck." Okay, well, here's the reason why I got it. Email me with, and I challenge anyone that's sold in the United States. That's a solid axle, trail ready, 4-door. Crew cab, 4-door convertible pickup truck that can tow, let's say, the base model of 4,000 pounds. There is none.
Yeah.
It is literally in a market its own. And that appealed to me. When this thing first started coming out, I love the extended cab. And my opinion is they should make that. Absolutely, they should make the extended cab because that, to me, aesthetically, is much more nicer of a truck.
Yeah.
And
it's very attractive to have that extended cab that we saw at SEMA as a concept vehicle.
And I will agree with that every day of the week, and that's the way I feel. But again, looking at, some of the things that are really cool about it are 10 millimeter axle wall. Okay, tube thickness or whatever. Okay, it's got cast aluminum knuckles. I'm not too happy about that.
But you've already figured out an answer to that, haven't you?
And that's what I was going to next. They have the Mojave Edition. Now, the Mojave Edition, I did some reading up on, and it actually is really cool because they're going after the Raptor, the TRD market. Now, you and I both kind of agree the Raptor market, that's a
different market.
That's a turbocharged V6, and I love the Pentastar V6. I love the 8-speed transmission because let me tell you something. This Rubicon with the 410 gears. It will move.
It moves.
It will move almost as much as the Charger would. 0 to 60 in 7 seconds.
That's good.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all. But the Mojave does actually have true beefed up frame components. There's all kind of articles about it. But the really cool thing is that usually everyone takes from the Rubicon and gives to the other vehicles. Well, this was the other way around.
Right.
Because they already had the Mojave in production or on the drawing board. What would basically, if you're going to go out there and beat the snot out of something in the desert and sand and really run things hard.
Taking it down the fire roads with the whoops on it.
You need a 10 millimeter axle. So the Rubicon getting a 10 millimeter thickness axle tubes is a holdback from the Mojave. Usually it's the other way around.
Yep.
You get all kinds of really cool upgrades, strengthened frame, which makes me wonder the question, are people going to order the Mojave frames and put them onto their Sport S's?
Possibly.
It's going to be kind of expensive, but a cheaper way, I'm thinking, well, that thing comes with the cast iron knuckles.
Rather than the aluminum.
So if you got a way to get cheap parts through a dealership, there's your cast upgrade right there. Hopefully, relatively inexpensive compared to an aftermarket.
And they may
supplier.
actually be coming out as replacements very soon too. In a cast iron format. So that's pretty cool. And again, I think you hit on one of the key factors for the choice in the Gladiators, and that is, it's not a competition for the F-250, the 25,000, the Ram 2500. It's not a competition for the 150s. It's a competition for the midline trucks, the compacts. And in that arena, it plays very, very strongly.
Yeah.
And your model, you said the tow rating actually came in at what?
7,000 pounds.
7,000 pounds, folks. Now, granted, you have to take out anything you put in the bed of the truck, that weight, and you have to take your weight and fuel and that kind of stuff. But still, that shouldn't be more than 1,000 pounds, one would think, and that'd leave you an honest capability of tow.
5,000, 4,000
to 6,000 pounds. And
easy.
That's great. Wheelbase is longer than the JLs, so it'll be a better tow vehicle.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see if they come out with a gooseneck package for it.
I don't think so.
Well, it's not about the weight rating. Gooseneck puts the weight centered over the axle as opposed to out 4 to 6 feet behind the vehicle with a lever arm. So you actually reduce the negative impacts of towing when you have a gooseneck.
But you still have the coil springs, though. That's what kind of scares me.
But that's not a big deal. I mean, a lot of things tow on coil springs. That's a function of how strong your link suspension is in your panhard bars.
Right.
It's just a thought, because you're going to resist actually more force when you're towing on a bumper pole than on a gooseneck, because there it has a lever arm. You got to remember the center of the axle. It's the rear wheels that are stopping side to side motion of the trailer. Well, if you're pushing the wheel side to side is one thing directly on the wheels. But if you take a lever, a 6 foot long bar in some trucks from the center line of the axle back to the back end, well, now you have a pry bar.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, I could see that as an interesting product. The problem is the liability, because if somebody says, well, if it's got a gooseneck in it, I'm going to put this 4-horse trailer on the back.
Or tow a 30-foot or 21-foot camper while they JK to Georgia.
That's true.
Cough.
Yeah.
But again, it's very interesting, and a lot of people have asked me, why did I do it? Why did you trade in a JK for the JL basic model? And honestly, creature comforts. I mean, it is a very nice ride. It is plush.
Let's face it, Dory still commutes to work every day, anytime. She's an on-call emergency trauma nurse,
or
right?
OR nurse.
OR nurse now, that's right. And so when she gets the call, she's got to go. And even if she's tired and just got home from a last call, she's got to turn around
right back and go
back. And your life may depend on it if you're down here in Florida and in the trauma center.
Yeah.
So, we want her to arrive safely, comfortably, and as little stress as you can get in Tampa traffic.
Well, and that's one of the things that was really kind of pivotal of our decision is Dory had the JK for the longest time. And, again, 8 years for her is a long time to own a vehicle.
It is.
And she almost wanted to get out of the Jeep game a little bit. You know?
She'd kind of gotten... It was too much of yesterday's news.
Yeah, and this has been a resurgence of, okay, I'm noticing some things in the Amazon cart now, But, nothing suspension-wise, because right now I think if we're going to do a body mod or something like that, the first thing is going to be some steps, some power steps.
Yeah, I noticed they brought the rig over to the property I just recently bought. We were looking at property, and they showed up, and I'm going, are those power? No, those aren't power steps. And I'm watching Dory hand over hand to climb down out of the Rubicon. Like, that won't be long.
Yeah, no, and it's a fun ride, and that's one thing. When I went to the Gladiator's owners page, I said, what was your reason for the naysayers? And everyone felt the same way. It's like, look, I wanted a Jeep really bad, but I needed a truck just to put some stuff in because I do my yard work or I do dump runs and all that, or whatever the case may be. And now all of a sudden, you and I talked about this. Jeep is in business to sell vehicles.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden, you got a small pickup that is trail rated, solid axles front and rear, that you can remove the doors off and have a soft top
you can
with.
take the top off too.
And I'm sorry, man, that filled a gap. Now, unfortunately, again, like I said, they kind of priced themselves out of the market, but
the market will correct things over the next bit of time. You just took an active role in correcting it early for yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. And the deals are out there to be had. I mean, I've seen on that Gladiator post some people getting up to 10% off of MSRP or below 4% invoicing. Bear in mind, it probably wasn't a fully loaded Rubicon, but their deals are out there now. These dealerships are hungry to sell. So if the pricing
they've already been shipped all of these vehicles. They have got to move them.
If they don't sell them within 90 days, or no, it's the 60 or 90 days, they own that vehicle. They have to pay Chrysler for it. It's kind of like a consignment deal.
Yeah.
So if you see one on there, first thing you should ask that salesman, hey, how long has this been on the lot? 45 days? Okay, now we're willing to talk. And that's why the Overlander was 47 MSRP down to 43, because guess what? It was on the lot for more than 45 days.
Yeah.
So those deals are out there. You just got to do a little legwork and go and grasp that,
So are you basically volunteering for our listeners that if they're shopping for a Jeep, that they can call you or send you texts on strategies and plans for?
Well, if you want to email me a question on the trail podcast at gmail.com, I will answer the best I can to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, every deal's different. Every dealer's different. So I say that in jest, but there's a lot of people out there that are hunting for Jeeps. Now, let's make one thing clear. That's for a new Jeep, not a used vehicle. Some of the things will apply, but those dealers don't have a buyback, or what do you call it, a holdback. When you're buying used vehicles, they own it outright. And there's really, their incentive is cash flow, but there's no hidden incentive other than I'd like to move this and make room on the lot for the next vehicle.
And me even saying this, and I hate saying this, don't take their 121-point inspection as gospel.
Yeah.
Take it to a shop.
Have it checked.
Take it to a shop and have it checked. Take it to another dealership and have it checked. Believe me, all day long at work I see from another dealership, please inspect vehicle. And it doesn't go to the guys who do the inspection, the internal team. It goes to the regular technicians team that are hungry and looking for problems.
Yeah.
So definitely, you have that right, because again, you're the one saddled with the payment. It's very important, because I don't want to see anybody get screwed and lose things and get caught up in financial hawk, because then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you literally can't pay for your own vehicle. Yeah. And to some of the things that one person asked me, they made up a good point. They go, I thought you bought a regular JL. I saw you coming down the road. From the front end, it looks just like a regular JL. Yeah, it does. Now, do I wish they would have done something a little different with the front end? Yeah.
They did.
Well, yeah, they did. Yeah. They made the grill openings a tiny bit bigger.
You said almost a half an inch.
Almost a half an inch. Yeah, me and Kevin out there, measuring when we were at Jeep and with Judd, like going by finger widths, going, okay, it's a half, it's a fingernail more wider for airflow. Yeah. But you can't see that when you're going the other direction at 45 miles an hour.
Not really.
So, but I think I've expounded on this subject enough. But we're excited to have it in the stables. I can show the LJ some love.
Yeah.
And eventually, hopefully, maybe down the road, get something a little different, another more fuel efficient vehicle. But on that note, Dory's driven over a week and still on half a tank.
Well, she went really good.
North Carolina and back. It still took 3 tanks up and 3 tanks back. But again, it was a new vehicle with only had 237 miles on it. It needs to break in a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. So that's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
So when we do come back, though, I want to take a quick break real quickly. But actually, Rodney from the Jeepers Den, he had another question for you, Kevin. So we're going to get back to that here in a second.
Okay.
And on that note, guys, again, any questions on the drill podcast at gmail.com.
You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Listening to the smooth jazz favorites of you and your Jeep. That's right. We're hoping that eventually your relationship with your Jeep blossoms and becomes one with the universe and things like that. So take time to give back to the one that really loves you, and make sure you check the oil repeatedly, check the air pressure, check the transmission fluid, make sure there's no puddles of fluids underneath. So this PSA brought to you by your friends at On the Trail with Kevin and Scott.
Folks, I am going to ask his wife to check his meds. Something's gone wrong.
And we'll be right back with the
Scott
show.
That I know. Oh, all right. You said we had an email, and I apologize, folks. As mentioned, I have gone back to the world of the employed, and suddenly I'm kind of missing about 5 days of the week that I used to have to do things.
Rodney's going, I have to follow that with my email?
Yep, you do.
Yes. Hey, really quickly. Actually, Kevin, Rodney had a quick question for you.
Okay.
A regular contributor, actually, to the show.
Okay.
Speaking of, being a regular contributor, he had a question. Basically, he is still building the 8.8 for his TJ and also a Dana HP 30,
Okay.
the high pinion 30.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and on which he's going to be doing the WJ knuckle conversion to
Okay.
upgrade the brakes.
Get the wider brake.
Yep. He is considering on doing a crossover style steering system and possibly maybe use tie rod ends from the 1 ton. His question is that while not his daily driver, his Jeep is still the tow rig for his RV. So while I
Does
can
he say toe or toad?
tow, the Jeep is a tow rig for my RV. So while
Okay, so I'm assuming he means a toad behind.
I think it is good. I think he talked about the bumper.
Okay.
Yeah, because you had the same bumper you did. So if that's wrong, Roddy, please let us know.
Let us know.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on the crossover steering versus the Haltenberger? Is that
Haltenberger.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And
Inverted Y.
Okay, gotcha. And why would you want to do a YJ upside down? So what are the other possible steering upgrades without spending $500 plus for a Curry system? Thanks.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason why we're doing this, Rodney, is because you're not the only person to ask this question.
Correct. And so this is one of those. And plus, Scott just decided that he wanted to spring this on me on the air.
Not true. I told you 34 minutes ago.
Yeah, you did. You did. I'll guarantee you that. All right. Let's first talk about not just the steering geometry, but also a solid axle. Because you're running a solid axle, the relationship between the two wheels on the front axle stays constant. They're the same width apart. They turn, one goes up, the other goes down, but that's all they do. They kind of, if you pictured it, rotate in a circle.
Ackerman angles.
Well, no, there are no Ackerman angles.
I got excited for a second, like I remembered something.
In a, you can kind of get a mock Ackerman, but there's no Ackerman angles. Ackerman angles, folks, for those that don't know, when you go around, if you've ever seen tire tracks in wet sand or in snow, you'll notice that when you make a turn, all four wheels follow a different radius of curvature. There's not 2 lines, there's 4. And if you think about it, if you have a circle that's different diameters, they have different radii and different circumferences. In other words, distances traveled. So when you go around a corner in a Jeep or any vehicle, the front tire takes a shorter path than the outer tire. And it needs to be turned at a different angle. Okay?
Right.
And that angle is basically figured out by a system that comes up with the Ackerman angle, and that goes into the suspension of an independent front suspension, so that as the tire moves, the suspension moves, as you turn, the inner tire turns to a tighter radius than the outer.
Okay.
Now, you can't really, obviously, this is the downfall to a straight link bar in a crossover steering system. You can never have any kind of an Ackerman angle.
Right.
Whatever you crank the wheel, the one bar from the steering box pushes the passenger's wheel, typically on a left-hand drive Jeep, over, and then the tie bar just pulls the driver's side to match. And so you pretty much have a fixed radius. So depending on the weight in your Jeep, because it will vary, whether the inner one scrubs off speed because it's turning a tighter radius, but really isn't allowed to, so it scrubs a little bit to the outbound, or the inner scrubs to the inbound if you got all your weight on the inner wheel. That's where a little bit of the inverted Y comes in. It's not perfect, but because of the Y, when the Jeep rolls a little bit, if you can kind of picture in your mind, let's turn to the left. The steering box will, and that side, the driver's side, will compress.
Right.
Okay, as you're turning right. I'm sorry, turning to the right. That will essentially lengthen the effective angle of the tie bar between the box and the wheel, which would make the turn go a little deeper. That's why as you corner hard, the Jeep wants to dart into the corner somewhat.
Right.
But the Y compresses as well. That link coming from the middle, and the Y actually spreads open under compression, which pushes the outer tire out.
Okay.
Okay. That is a mock Ackerman angle. You get some differential tracking of those two wheels. Conversely, if you corner the other direction to where the steering box is raised up, comparatively speaking, i.e. making a hard left turn, as I started with, okay, the driver's side tends to lift up as you're cornering. Okay. The steering pulls that inner wheel, the passenger's wheel in a little bit, but as you lift up, you're also lifting the Y point. If you take your fingers, like I'm doing on the video,
right,
and you do this, it actually will pull them together as you go up, push them apart, so you change the toe in. Not an exact Ackerman, but you change the toe in depending upon what the suspension is doing.
Okay.
And that is one of the reasons Jeep uses, or he did use, that inverted Y steering linkage. Okay. And the Curry Correct Link doesn't change that. It's a fairly good system, particularly on the shorter wheelbase vehicles like the TJs. It gives you less of the bump steer, because when your axle bumps up, you get a little toe out, which kind of helps bring things, that stabilizes the wheels till they come back in again.
Okay.
Crossover steering takes that away. Is that a bad thing? Hell no, it's not a bad thing. Think about it. That's what they did on the JLs.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just have to design the steering geometry to take that into account. A lot of heavy trucks use a straight cross-tie steering system. The thing is, there's absolutely no give and take there. So the parts have to be beefier just to start with. All right. And you're going to scrub more on the tires. So you usually see increased scrubbing wear, not corner wear like on a turn, but literally, you're sliding the whole tire around a circle, not exactly on the correct angle. So you're basically doing the eraser thing.
You're plowing it.
You're plowing the tire. Now, let's flip the coin. So why would I want straight steering? It's deucedly stronger, okay? You don't have that mid-joint that moves. You have to take your tie bar that goes from your box to your passenger's wheel on the TJ, flatten it and punch a hole in it to put the Y-link in. Okay. That's not exactly conducive to maintaining strength.
Okay, so which one is the straight steering? That's the Heidelberger?
Yeah, no. The Heidelberger is the inverted Y.
Okay.
Basically, your crossover steering, the stuff that a lot of people change to, or is found on a lot of the new ones, is the one that's just two straight bars, one from the box to the passenger's wheel, and then from the passenger's wheel to the driver's wheel.
And that's what the Gladiator and the LJ,
correct,
the JL have.
Yeah, and it works fine. It just puts a little more stress on the tires. Okay. On the other hand, the inverted Y isn't a bad system, but it's also a little more delicate. And it doesn't help that Jeep decided to stick it out in front of the axle.
Where rocks
and hard nose overs and things like that can mutilate it. If you look at a lot of other vehicles, they go behind. Okay. And the linkage is put behind for the protection, but that's also easier if you have rack and pinion. Well, guess what? It's kind of tough to do rack and pinion on a straight axle.
Yeah,
there's no way to get that linkage to line up.
And not only that, I've seen so many trucks, because Chevy, I don't know if they still do it. To be honest, I think they still do. They put rack and pinion on their heavy duty trucks, or did. And it's like, gee, I wonder why we're having all these rack failures.
Yeah, because the loads on a rack, when you get down to the pinion gear that goes into the steering, yes, it's very, very precise, and it's also very small.
Yeah, I used to sell they're called the Keyway or something like that. Keyway rack pin, whatever it is. Yeah. There was a kit, it had the little spiral. Some people call it the pigtail, literally like a curly Q.
Yeah,
and we used to sell those all the time in kits,
right? Because they would get damaged. So, there's no question about it. You go to the biggest, heaviest, beefiest military trucks, and you're going to see cross-link steering. Okay, that's just two bars. Short wheelbase vehicles like TJs, that got dicey. And Chrysler needed a way to, let's say, improve the handling so that they didn't have a repeat of the CJ5.
Thank you, Ralph Nader.
Yeah. Well, he had some points. He just was a little overzealous about his points. But so what we're looking at here is what's best for you. Well, it really depends on how you're using your Jeep. Now, you say you're using it as your Toad.
Right.
And for those in the RV world, I am too. TOAD just simply is the tongue-in-cheek for this is my Toad vehicle, TOWED. Really, both of them will work pretty well because you're not going to be articulating your Jeep much when it's towed behind an RV. So you're not going to have a whole lot of advantage from the inverted Y, and you're not going to be putting a whole lot of stress on the straight bar system. So both would work. As far as cheaper alternatives, One, of course, in the classic one in the TJ world is to replace the TJ linkage with a ZJ linkage.
Right.
Same dimensions, same inverted Y, much heavier stock of material, thicker bar, and you can get those replacements at your parts store. You can just go in there with the right year, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you Google it, it's pretty easy to get those. Otherwise, I'm not sure of any cut and dried answer for stronger other than buying, good quality equipment.
Well, he did say about possibly using 1-ton tie rod ends. So
the problem with 1-ton tie rod ends is they're not going to fit into the holes. Okay, and your taper is going to be off, and you're going to have to either machine the
even with the ZJ
knuckles
or the WJ knuckles.
I think even with the WJ, because the WJ knuckles, they still utilize their. I haven't done that personally. I just broke down and bought the better knuckles. I bought some nodular cast irons aftermarket. Remember mine had the little rubways where the brake pads wore away,
which is kind of scary because I didn't look at mine.
Yeah. So
just add that to the list.
Well, they may not be bad. So
at 140,000 miles, I don't know if they're good.
Well, that's true. So the downside to the 1-tons is looking at the fact that when you bore out and retaper the ends of the knuckles, do you have enough meat in the knuckle to not be fragile there?
Right.
This is the downside to strengthening beyond the manufacturers is you end up just moving the fuse is what we call it.
Yeah.
If every system has its weak spot. Engineering is all about choosing the weak spot to be in as safe a place as possible.
Kind of like putting RCVs on a 513 Dana 30.
That's kind of You're going to move the fusible link from
to the expensive bits that are harder to repair.
Yeah, it's harder to repair. You're only talking about doing an HP 30, and I have personal experience with that. And, I will tell you that built well, they will be a very tough axle. And the one I built still lives on. I did not break it. I bent it. And the gentleman who bought it from me didn't care and had the ability to straighten it to some degree and then weld a truss back on it to take care of that. It still is only a 30, which has a very small ring gear, a very small pinion. And I chose not, I upgraded the axle shafts and stubs, but I did not upgrade the U-joints out at the wheel end because
that's your fuse.
That's your fuse, and that's the easiest one to replace.
Yeah.
So even though I made it smile, as we jokingly say, and that could be pressed back in and then trussed, he's just moved, Well, he kept the U-joints the same.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, Ron is still running the front axle in Roxy, which is a stroker-equipped TJ 97.
Yeah, with 35s.
With 35s, and he hasn't trashed it yet.
Yeah.
But yet hangs out there kind of like a guy on the side of the road with the little flashy pizza sign.
You got tagged in a lot of pictures of that, the Jeep branch picture of that front end about 3 feet off the ground.
Yes. Well, fortunately, the truss was in place.
Hey, look, there's your old axle.
Yeah, there's my old axle. No warranties, Ron.
No. It had a Georgia warranty. You break it, you get to keep both halves.
Yeah, exactly. We used to jokingly say, it's good for 3 feet past the curb or 10 minutes, whichever comes first.
I thought it was a 30-30 warranty.
Well, you can do those
30 feet or 30 seconds.
Yeah, that works too. But, that's exactly why the subjects you're bringing up are exactly why I ended up going ahead and just saving money. Didn't finance it. I just saved money in a little fund until I had enough money and went out, hello, Pro Rock.
Well, and that's the thing, like even going back to the steering, we talked about it with Ronnie, the Curry Correct link is a lot of money. I'll be the first to admit it.
It is.
But here's the thing. Your time is worth something. So yes, can you go in and get tie rod ends and figure out tubes and make them and weld them? And some people like that challenge, and you know what? More power to you.
Yep.
I'm not that kind of person. My time is valuable. And not to sound like an elitist, by no means.
But you have other things you'd rather be doing.
I have a lot of other obligations.
Well, Scott, you're a Jeep driver more than a Jeep builder.
No, I'll completely. I'm a bolt-on. I aspire and love to be the guy out there, rock crawling. And can I segue for a quick second?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you, Rodney, I promise.
No, well, and this is the point, is that I have the absolute most respect for people who go out there and build their Jeeps, stuff the fuel-injected V8s in their Jeeps. I have absolute respect for you, Kevin, because you are the builder. You are the guy that understands and can know, and you have the skills. I don't. Now, said that, I recently came across a email/post of saying, hey, a lot of web wheelers out there. Mm-hmm. And, some people keep it real and some people do this. And it's like, I wanted to have a comedy podcast, but comedy podcast is so flooded right now. Mm-hmm. So let's take a passion, which is Jeeps, and I'm here for the jokes.
Yep.
And to learn. So I look at this more as infotainment. I know on our Jeep and Widget video, I talked about infotainment. So I just want to take a little bypass that while I do know a lot of my knowledge comes from doing really stupid things and going, Kevin, I broke it.
Well, and let's pick up the segue, because to counter that, I admit I do love the hows and the whys. Mm-hmm. And to me, the thrill is in the creation. I enjoy going out and wheeling. Don't get me wrong. I love doing things, but I don't, I'm not one of those who wheels just to see what I can break and build new. My goal in wheeling, and you've worked with me for 5 or 7 years now in different events, is to go see something, to do something, to go somewhere that I can't go unless I'm hiking, and I absolutely do not care to hike. I've only got one OEM, major body joint left that hasn't been cut, remolded by somebody who shares my passion, but on the human body. And I'd rather not torch that knee. The other ones are functioning. The shoulders are functioning well. Thank you, Dr. Lopez. You did absolutely bang up work on me. And he keeps reminding me I'm not 20 anymore. And I keep saying, but you keep fixing me. He goes, they don't make parts for you anymore.
You're obsolete. Yeah.
You're obsolete.
Hey, you're the $6 million man. I'm the 38 cents man.
But see, the thing for me is I do enjoy the creation. And you know as well as I that I also enjoy sharing and teaching.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. And I do know there's listeners out there, Scott, who are like me, who enjoy the creation. There's something about taking raw steel and turning it into something that performs well.
And building something tangible. You can hold it in your hands.
Right. So, I understand that. And I'm going to strive to help those people any way they want. So back to Rodney. Rodney, I think you're looking at the fact that, okay, you're going to go with the what'd you say, the WJ knuckles?
WJ knuckles.
Okay, so that gives you the larger
brakes.
Diameter brakes and the bigger caliper assembly, which is absolutely fantastic. Make sure your master cylinder is the correct model. You may need to grab the one out of the WJ. I'm not sure on this, so I'm not going to say you do or you don't, but check it out, because if you have a bigger set of calipers with larger pistons and you don't have the correct size piston in your master cylinder, you can run to the end of your master cylinder stroke and still not close the piston on the brake.
Correct.
In which case you got to pump like furious, because if you haven't already hit the car in front of you.
Please don't do that.
Please don't. The other issue here, though, you're talking specifically about steering. So what I'd say is start looking for the weak spots. Yes, TJ stock inverted steering linkage is known to bend. Not many of them actually outright fail, though.
Right.
Okay, so you can upgrade to the WJ front linkage, and that's relatively inexpensive. I'd say you probably can do that for under $150 for the parts. And that's fantastic. Make sure that when you seat the tapers of the knuckles, that they're seated tight and they're torqued to spec and that they're properly pinned. Don't just assume. Now, there are some other inherent weak spots in Jeeps, particularly in the TJ model. Number one, take a look at your frame where your steering box mounts.
Yes.
Look for cracks. And they're usually cracks around the pipes that are welded into the frame where the bolts mount. And they will give you flex. Even though it doesn't fall off, they'll move, which will give you that vague, soft feeling.
That wandering
feeling. They can be re-welded, ground smooth so that the box sits flat. All right. Check the box itself. Particularly now, they're all getting pretty old. We just talked about that not too long ago, that in 2006, and the 05 and 06s have a Mercedes box. And the holes are actually mounted differently, but you can get replacement boxes that fit. And before that, you had Saginaw boxes, but they were the lighter duty Saginaw boxes. So a big good, inexpensive upgrade for the earlier TJs is to go get a Dodge Dakota pickup truck.
Yeah, I see a lot of people saying that.
Saginaw boxes, and it's a bolt-in, okay? And so that brings a lot of strength, and you can pick this, I think, 2 different ratios that you can get. I think there's a 13-to-1 and is it a 9-to-1 or an 8-to-1 or something like that?
Right.
Usually, it sounds weird. Go for the fast one. No, this isn't. We're not doing slaloms here, folks. The slower one actually is easier on the trail to control. Yeah, it takes more input from your steering wheel, but not bad. Another famous TJ point that puts slop in the steering. It's the little bearing that's right under your brake master cylinder that bolts to the top of the frame rail that holds your intermediate shaft. Mm-hmm. They are notorious for splitting the little plastic clamshell that sits in the little steel clamshell and letting the needle bearing assembly float free. And all of a sudden, you've got this unsupported shaft.
Right.
Mine did it not once, but twice.
Yeah.
All right. In fact, to the point that Kevin went out and drilled out a brand new one before I put it on the rivets that split and put in grade 8 nuts and bolts with Loctite and, the Nylock washers. And then I put the slotted sleeve to prevent the pressure from the shaft that causes it to fail on the steering shaft. Normally the steering box movement punches the end of the bearing. So take a look at that bearing. If it's dry, or in my case, it was in pieces. There was a white Darrellin ring resting on it above the bearing mount, and there was a piece all the way down at the steering box.
Yeah.
And that will introduce a lot of flex into your steering. You'll have a really vague, loose feel. So I don't know if that's one of your problems. Another classic one is the actual upper steering shaft itself in the cockpit. That short shaft, there's a connection joint just at your feet, right at the firewall. There's some bearings in there that get kind of loud and noisy and get kind of loose and rattly. Anything you have loose in the steering section will contribute to that vague feel.
Right.
The good news is the upper steering column assembly, the guts of it, not the hardware, not the steering wheel, not the little plastic box around the shift levers.
The serviceable bits.
But the serviceable bits in the middle are the same as the Jeep Liberties. And mine, I just went to the junkyard at a pick and pull, found a Jeep Liberty that only had about 40,000 miles on it, that had been nice and crunched. Took the parts, went home, took it apart. You got to have the weird little tool to get the security bolts off of the keyway, and then proceeded to deconstruct my old TJ one, which when I took out, I could take the bottom end of the shaft and move it side to side 1/4 inch.
Yipe.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. Eep.
And put it all back together, and now I have and I think it was a sum total of about $45 from the pick and pull.
But just a little, and for like I said, with those who are mechanically inclined can understand that. Yep. Boom, you're done.
You're done. So these are all the systems in there. If you want to convert to crossover steering, nothing wrong with it. You'll wear your tires just a little bit quicker. Neither one are problematic when towing that I am aware of. I'll put it that way. Okay. I would happily tow behind my RV, and yes, I have a Super C that I have not yet, as of this podcast, rigged up and towed the thing yet, the TJ behind it, but that is the plan. Mm-hmm. It's just the new job is kind of interceded, so all of a sudden my big Super C is sitting there slowly getting dusty, and I have to go, I got to go start it. Because you know what? Trailers are neat. I had loved my trailer because you could flush it, wash the tanks out, and close it up and go away from it. And the worst you might have is, okay, I didn't flush the black tank quite well enough and it gets a little ripe. Right. But, plastic doesn't degrade. You can just flush it out. Mm-hmm. The refrigerator, somehow the door closed. It's a little funky. It's a little baking soda and water.
Life is good.
Life is good. Now I have not one, but 2 separate diesel engines in this thing sitting there. And you know what diesel engines don't like?
Sitting
still, not running. So every 30 days, I have to schedule a day to go to where I've got it stored, make sure there's fuel in the tank, check the conditions of the oil and the filters, and fire them up and let them idle, or actually preferably put a load on them for about an hour, and then shut them back down, clean my way out, and go home. Great. So anyhow, steering linkages on TJ, I just sucked it up and put money in my little secondary, the banks let you make little secondary checking accounts.
Yeah.
And I pay myself anytime I have a couple extra bucks, and I stick it in that little account, and that's my Jeep fund, and my wife knows it. In fact, she'll make surprise deposits occasionally when she's, if I do something she likes, she'll maybe put $20 in there. And eventually I find myself able to go buy the part.
Yeah.
I don't recommend, and I'm sorry, this is just Kevin Finance, I don't recommend buying them on a credit card and then paying it off slowly, because you're going to pay for the part 2 or 3 times over in interest. I prefer to
just bite the bullet once.
I prefer to save up the money and buy it outright. But that's just my version.
That's where I got sidetracked before the segue is that, time is money. If it's $300, if you're going to have $250, and again, unless you really want the challenge and, and have that tangible thing and make it and create it, to me, it's okay. It's $200 to do it now, or $500 and it's done. I can wait an extra week and a half or 2 months or whatever. Just take that time to do that. And
I'm the guy that built the shed with the roof that pops up, built the
exactly
the Taj Mahal stall with cameras and Wi-Fi's for horses, and But see, I like the challenge.
And that's what I'm saying. If that's your boat, man, I absolutely, more kudos and power to you guys. I wish I could be you, but
you're just not you. On the other hand, I can't tell a joke to save my life.
No, you did pretty good the other day.
I can zinger, but that's about it. So Rodney, right?
Yes.
Rodney, I hope this long kind of rambling diatribe between Scott and I has given you a clue. You're in a good place. It sounds like you're doing a lot of research on your own. You're doing a lot of your own work, which will mean you'll understand it. The key here is, of course, whichever choice you make, read the instructions. They're in there for a reason. Mm-hmm. Follow them. Use the torque wrench. Make sure you put, good cotter pins in there. If they don't give them to you, I like to get them. You can get them that are plain steel, and you can actually get them that are electroplated with zinc. They're going to last a little bit longer. Get the zinc ones. Yep. I do not recommend stainless steel cotter pins because they're soft and they can get busted. They're good for aviation use in certain situations or marine use in certain situations, but in a Jeep world, let's just make it good old hard steel with a little bit of rust protection. Yeah. If you got to run regular steel, I'm a big fan. Scott will tell you, I use the Rust-Oleum rust converter, rust restorer, I guess is the name. And I'll even use that on new steel because it is an etchant primer that converts any rust from iron oxide to iron phosphate, and kind of like the OSFOs. And it's a pretty good protectant, and I've used that on the bottom of Slightly Altered every time I've worked, and she's still rust-free at the moment. Yeah. So...
Well, that's the thing with me. Again, as far as all that goes, Roddy, we appreciate the tech-heavy comments and questions because, again, you weren't the only person asking that question. So, yes, we did a round diatribe, but people ask us, hey, is this a good upgrade, the one-ton tie rod ends and all that? So we kind of answered everyone's question. Didn't mean to single you out.
No, but yours was the most clear and articulate email that we got.
Yeah.
Other ones go, me steering fix, please. No, not quite. That's more Scott's line. Huh?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know I did something else. Speaking of maintenance, there's nothing like going out there and washing and waxing your home. I wash and wax the camper the other weekend.
Camper.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's whatever works for you. I actually had to do the Super C, and I'm sitting there with that long pole going, okay, why did I buy one so tall? Oh, that's light. I like to stand up inside.
And yet I haven't yet. Unless I'm idling it for an hour. Speaking of idling for an hour, anything else you want to cover? Or I think we pretty much...
we'll get back to a regular old format, and I've got some other tech issues. You guys heard about my foible last show. Mm-hmm. I'm still living that one down. Not looking, the freaking switch fell off the doorstep.
You have to check the video for that because we purposely left that out of the show. It's a little Easter egg in the video where you can see Kevin made a boo-boo.
Yeah, I did. And it happens. I'm human. Yeah. The difference is when I realize I make a boo-boo, I usually just kind of do what they call it, face palm maneuver, and then go, okay, let me go fix it.
I just walk away and go, what problem? I have no idea what you're talking about, and try and bury it under the rug.
Well, that works too,
Honey, why is the LJ under the rug? Tush, what LJ? Your coffin? Oh, that LJ.
Yes.
Moving on.
So I think at this point in time, as we usually say, enough talking. And it's been 2 weeks since the Jeeping with Jet event. Mm-hmm. So now we honestly can say, let's put the Jeep in 4-low lock hubs. and hit the trail.
And remember, to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
Thank you. Keep it clean so that our kids get the same rights that we do.
Yes, and the best part is our next show coming up is April Fool's.
Oh, God help me. I'm in trouble.
Hey.
I'm in trouble.
To all of our patrons, thank you. And to everyone else who shares the show, send us an email. Please keep those emails coming, man. We really appreciate them.
But I will throw out the last one. We've got some spring stuff coming up. There's Daytona. That's Jeep Beach for those down here in the southeast. And all kinds of summer Jeeping activities. So, you know,
Go Topless event might be coming up
Go
soon,
Topless
too.
is coming up down here. Key is, take some time out. Give your Jeep a rundown. It's had a hard winter, particularly for a lot of you that may still be winter. But, now's a good time to change oils, do grease work.
Do that maintenance.
Do the maintenance that's deferred. Change some lubes because you're going to start pushing it hard. When the weather warms up, that itchy foot and shift lever start coming up, and you want to go hit the trails. Let's make sure your Jeep's ready to hit the trail.
And that's why, as a callback, I went on about the diatribe about making sure you love your loved one.
That's fine.
All right. Y'all have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.